Harbour Freight survival knife, $8.99. Let's go talk about it. I've had a chance to play with it a little bit. Let's go on in my shop here where I do everything. Got all kinds of projects going on in here. Old bird feeder that I'm trying to repair. Some parts for a barber workstation for my stepson. Big old birdhouse over there I'm messing with just for sale. Chippendale bench I'm working on for somebody. A couple of birdhouses that I'm working on for some folks. Just all kinds of stuff going on. But another thing I got going on is wanting to take a look at this knife. Let me get my camera set up here and we'll have at it. Alrighty. The long awaited, but in maybe even much dreaded, Donnie D's test review of the old Harbour Freight survival knife, $8.99 with a coupon at Harbour Freight. I don't know what the regular price is supposed to be. Probably $8.99. I think you can actually get it cheaper than that with different coupons. But anyway, I did a sort of a out of the box or out of the package review on it the other day, and in that review all I did was just show you what I could see just right away just looking at it, and I didn't recommend it or not recommend it for to anybody. I said that I doubt that I would want to make it my only survival knife in like a bug-out bag or go-to bag or whatever you call it. Although I don't have one, I do have kind of an emergency kit I keep around the house for like hurricanes or stuff like that and power outages, whatever. But I'm going to actually take, for me, I'm going to just actually take it and keep it in my box of goodies that I keep in the back of my pickup truck, back seat of my pickup truck for my target shooting, just so I'll have a knife in case I need to pry something or whatever. But anyway, what I did with it, I just gave it some basic tests yesterday and a little bit this morning, and I didn't try to destroy the knife. I mean, if I wanted to destroy the knife, I'd take my angle grinder and cut the blade off. But I just tried to put it through what I thought I might use, things I might do with it in some type of survival situation or camping or something like that. And basically, first thing I had to do, because the blade was not very sharp, it was reasonably sharp, but it was, I don't know, just didn't feel sharp to me, was I sharpened it, and I used this, and this is kind of a pretty neat product in itself. I picked it up at Walmart yesterday to sharpen the blade of this knife, and then I'll use it for some other stuff around the shop and all. Works really good, but it took probably, I'm gonna guess 25 or 30 strokes with this thing in order to get a decent edge on this knife. But once I did it, it actually has a pretty decent edge. This is really easy to use. You just give it a nice pull with a bit of downward pressure on it, and then sort of clean it off like that. And it's got a pretty darn good edge on it right now. What I did basically was cut some fabric, some old shirts, some old towels and stuff like that, just to see how well it cut once I put a good edge on it, and it did no problem. I even cut some paper just to see how it would cut through paper, and, you know, just general stuff like that. I had a little bit of paracord that I didn't mind cutting, a little piece. I cut through that with no problem at all. Had some old boot laces that are pretty tough in themselves, and they would come in handy to keep in a bug-out bag. Just boot laces for tying stuff up and lashing stuff and all. They're pretty tough. Cut through them, absolutely no problem. I even transplanted some plants in my yard that I needed to move around yesterday and this morning, and I actually I dug the plant up, couple of hosta plants, and actually divided them. Supposed to do that in the fall, but I think they'll be okay. And actually dug the hole using a knife. So I was digging around in some gritty, sandy muck and dirt to plant those plants. And then you saw me just throw this knife at a tree and see it stick. And the reason I did that was two reasons. I noticed that the knife is fairly well balanced right at the hilt or whatever you call that part. Like I said, I'm no knife expert by any means. The hand guard. So I said, I bet this thing will throw pretty good. And I'm not a knife thrower, but I do have a habit in my job. A lot of times I'm standing around outside the road, or back in somebody's backyard or whatever, where I'm working on some of that stuff, and I end up on the telephone for several minutes on hold. And when I have a tendency to pull out my pocket knife or one of my screwdrivers or something, and I'll just sit there and throw it down at the dirt just to see if I can stick it. So I've gotten kind of used to doing that. So I said, well, let me see how this thing throws. And believe it or not, it throws pretty doggone good. I was standing about 10 feet away when I threw it and hit that tree, and that was my first try this afternoon when I walked out there. I said, let me just do that. That'll be a pretty neat beginning to the video. But anyway, that's why I did that, and that's why I was messing with that. And also I want to make sure that the blade didn't break. Now, I threw it a bunch of times yesterday in my test, but that was the first try today. And a lot of times on a knife, if you got a poor quality blade, it'll actually snap the tip off if you hit something, if you don't hit it square on like I did that time. Bunches of times I threw it, just hit the tree and bounced off, but it did not break or damage the blade. And also, someone did a video, I'll get to that point but in a minute, but what do they call it? I forgot what you call it when you there's a name for it, when you split wood and you stick the knife down on the end of the piece of wood and you take another piece of wood and hit it to drive the blade down through the wood to split it. Anyway, whatever you call that, I decided I was going to do some of that because one guy said that he tried to do it with his Harbour Freight knife. He said he put the blade on the piece of wood and took another piece and hit it, and the very first time he hit it, it snapped it off right here. Well, we'll get to that in a minute. I don't know why. Maybe he had a defective one, but I started out, I didn't go out and get a piece of stove wood. I just came into my workshop and I grabbed a piece of 2x Atlantic white cedar, and I could have probably just pushed the knife down through that because that's a really soft wood and it's got some kind of coarse grain to it sometimes that'll split really easily. So I went and found me three pieces of both untreated yellow pine 2x4 and some treated yellow pine 2x4, and split that. Now, I didn't take a stick of wood and put it on the thing and tap on it with the stick of wood. I actually used this hammer, this very hammer right here. I was banging on this blade with that hammer. I didn't have to bang real hard because the knife holding a pretty good edge, it went through it pretty good, but I didn't damage it with this hammer, and it split the wood. So all that being said, let's get to the things that I like about the knife. The first thing, let's look at the sheath. That's kind of both ways. I like the sheath in a way because it's just all it is just a plain old nylon sheath. I've got some nylon holsters for three of my handguns, and nylon's fine for them, for those particular guns. The part I do like about it is, I don't know if it's any good or not, but it holds the knife, and after all, what's a sheath supposed to do? And it does have a plastic liner down in it that's supposed to protect the sheath from the blade, and I suppose it does. The weak part of it is up here. It's very floppy up here. I would like for it to be a little stiffer, and this thing here is just a piece of crap. But so it's sort of a okay sheath, and then that's also a con in my opinion. I don't know, I got mixed feelings on the sheath, but it'll work. It works for the knife, I suppose. The fact that the blade is stainless steel, and it certainly appears to be stainless steel. I can't prove it's stainless steel. I'm not a numismatic expert, but they say it's stainless steel, so I'm going to take the word for it. It's a heavy, pretty thick blade, and again, the knife itself seems to be very well balanced for the blade and the weight of the handle. And this blade seems to, I've seen people say it doesn't hold an edge. Mine seems to be holding an edge fine. I've been sticking it in the dirt, sticking it in the sand, sticking it in the grit, chopping wood, I did also do some chopping, hacking away at some small limbs with it and stuff like that, and it popped them off no problem. And so I've been beating on it pretty good yesterday. Now, how long you'd have to do that to prove that a knife holds a good edge? Like I said, I'm not a knife expert. I don't know. I just know I sharpened it with this sharpener, put a decent edge on it, and it's still got a decent edge, holding it real good. I like the way the knife looks. I think it's a pretty neat looking knife, kind of cool looking. I like the way it feels in my hand. As far as the handle goes, I like the way it feels. I like the checkering on it. I like the fact that it does have a hand guard. And I sort of like the fact that it's hollow and that you can put some stuff in it, but we'll get to the stuff that's in it in just a minute. I like the fact that it feels good when I throw it. It seems to throw pretty good. And I like the fact that it does have a what is supposed to be a waterproof compartment to put some survival stuff. I think I would take this survival stuff and open it up and maybe save some of it, but I think I would make a little something different for that. I'm looking up through this knife. One guy said you can see some daylight through it. I'm not sure if I can see daylight through it or not. I see something, but I can't tell. That might be a glint off the light or something. I don't know. I do know this, that it does have an O-ring up here, and this actually threads on. We'll get to that in just a minute. And the threads go probably about that deep up to here. So I put it in water, submerged it in water last night, hot water. As a matter of fact, when it was hot when I first put it in there. Left it in there for about 30 or 40 minutes and came back and opened it up, and I didn't see any sign of any water in the handle. So I'm going to say that it is at least relatively waterproof, or at least water resistant. So I think you could safely put something in here. I don't think you'd ever have to worry about whatever you put in here, matches, strike plates, whatever, flints, whatever you might put in here. I don't think you'd have to ever worry about it getting wet, at least not from just being out in a heavy rain or something, or even dropping it in a creek and picking it up pretty quickly. I don't think you'd have to worry about that. Another guy mentioned that about this set screw. There is a set screw here. I do believe the set screw is for the purpose of helping to hold the blade to this part right here. I took it out, but I still could not budge the blade. It appears that there's some kind of a gasket between this part and the blade that's got it held in there pretty tight, and I think that's part of what they did to try to make it waterproof. So even though I completely took this set screw, I still could not remove the blade. Now, the things that I do not like about it, and the fact that it is a knife that does not have a tang that goes through the handle. That has got to be a detriment to the knife. It's just no way it can be as strong the way it is, hollow handle with the tang stopping about here, as it would be if the tang went all the way through and came out the back. The compass is a piece of crap, at least on this one. You may as well not have it. Chuck it. It's no good. None at all. Right now it's actually working. It's actually pointing to north. But you see when I turn it, it continues to point to north. And if you jiggle it just right, it might go back to north, but basically it's a piece of junk. The other thing I don't like about it is this right here. This, I'm not saying it doesn't work, but it is very difficult to use. You can cut through something, but it'll work you to death. And I'll tell you why. It feels extremely sharp, and that's why I've got these diamond holders. I use these to sharpen chisels and stuff, coarse, fine, and extra fine. And I tried buffing it up a little bit on the outer edge to sharpen it, see if that made any difference. It might have helped a little, but it's still pretty hard to use. And I think the reason is because it has, I don't know what a saw edge blade is supposed to look like on a survival knife, but to me, the fact that it's got teeth on both sides of this fairly thick blade, it makes it have too wide of a kerf. I really think, if you'll notice my pocket knife here, which cuts great, it's only got a row of saw edge teeth right here, and I think if this one was made that way, that it would work a lot better. But I am not impressed with that. It will work, it'll cut through, but my gosh, it'll work you right slam to death trying to do it. So I'm not impressed with that part at all. In fact, I'm even thinking about taking my grinder and actually removing one side or the other of these teeth in order to give it a narrower kerf. And those of you who don't know what I'm talking about when I talk about kerf, is in my wood shop, for instance, I have some table saw blades that are narrow kerf. I think they're something like 3/32 blade or something like that, as opposed to a blade that's like 3/16 blade. The 3/16 blade is stronger, will probably last longer, and will deform less when you run a piece of wood through it, but it has a wider kerf, and it takes more out of the saw to cut that kerf, which is the width of the cut through the wood, and it wastes more wood, whereas the narrow kerf blade goes through much easier and smoother. But anyway, I think the reason this doesn't work is because it's just too wide a cut or too wide of a kerf trying to cut through the wood. Now, this handle also screws off, as you can see, and that's what it looks like. That's how far the blade goes up into here. And that fellow that said that the first time he struck the knife to try to split a piece of wood, he said that the handle broke off. All I could see in the video was this video or view something like that. I couldn't tell what this looked like. I don't know if either he just plain had a very defective knife and it broke. I beat the crap out of it and I didn't have any problems with it. Or maybe it wasn't screwed on good and he didn't notice it and it sheared off because it was only partially screwed on. I can see how that could happen, but all I can say is I beat the snot out of this one and it didn't give it all. It did just fine. I don't know what else I can say. Again, if I was putting this into a go-to bag or a bug out bag or some type of survival kit, or if I was going to use it, if I did a lot of deep wilderness camping where I was really out in the boonies, I mean big time. I ain't talking about, there's a payphone, at the next tent. I'm talking about really survival camping. Would I make this my only knife? Heck no, I certainly would not. In fact, I wouldn't make any knife my only knife. I would have at least 2 or 3, I would think, and I'm not a survivalist. I'm not a heavy-duty camper. I used to do a little bit of camping, but nothing like where I would have to depend on a knife to save my life. But no, I wouldn't. But would I just throw this thing in the garbage because it came from Harbour Freight and I only paid $8.99? And because some people think it's a piece of crap? No, I wouldn't. In fact, I'm going to keep this one. Use it for something. Put it in, like I said, either use it in my shop or put it in my truck, in my bucket where I keep some shooting supplies. I mean, if nothing else, I can scrape paint with this stinking thing. But, you have to make up your own mind. If you like the look of the knife and you like the way it feels and all, for $8.99, how can you go wrong? But no, don't make it something that your life depends on. But anyway, that's my take on this knife. It's got more, to me, it's got more good points than it does bad. I don't know. You just have to make up your own mind. I've told you what I saw about the knife and my feelings on it. It is fun to throw, though. I swear it is. It's a heck of a lot fun to throw. I'm going to have to set me up a target so I don't beat the crap out of that tree out there. But anyway, this is Donnie D, and good or bad, this is my take on the Harbour Freight survival knife. $8.99 with a coupon, maybe even cheaper with a different coupon. But for now, this is Donnie. Don't jump on me too bad, y'all. The ones that still don't like this knife. I'm just giving you my opinion. I'm just a regular old guy. I'm not a knife expert. I'm not a survivalist. I just bought an $8.99 knife the other day when I went to Harbour Freight to get some other stuff. And I don't know. I kind of like the knife, but I would not make it my sole survivor knife, or I would not stake my life on it. Let's put it that way. But anyway, Donnie D, and I'll see you later. Bye.